They don't pay rent through some website. They pay through their bank. And that gave me the idea that, hey, we need to come back and create a fintech product. Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. This is year 4 of the YC Back Startup as a Solo Founder series. And this is probably the last year before I start talking about something else. So the year is 2025, year 4 of our startup. And here are the lessons I learned. In the early of 2025, I tried to work less. So I did cut down on my hours. But later in 2025, the company growth slowed down. And I was panicking and feeling guilty for not working hard in the early of the year. It felt like the slowdown in growth was a punishment for not working hard early in the year. But the actual lesson now I realize is that startup is like taking a long bike ride. There are good terrains and there are bad terrains. And it's just that in the early of the year, things are relatively stable in 2025. So I took it a little bit easy. I was paddling on a flat road. But then in the later of the year, the terrain got really hard. So I had to come back with a full energy. And that is something I learned, which is I need to conserve my energy to the best of my ability, such that if the company needs me, I will come back with vengeance. I'm always working, but coming back, meaning that I up a notch. So this is the idea about working hard and not feeling guilty for quote unquote taking it easy sometimes as a founder. And that's a lesson I only learned when I'm in year 4. In year 1 through 3, it's almost like in the first few months of a baby. Every time when the baby cries, you get scared, you get paranoid, you always feel like something bad's gonna happen to it. Year 4, I try to do that only to find out it's still too early to do it. The wrong lesson will be I will always work hard till the company gets sold, which is forever. The right lesson is I can still use good judgment to take adequate breaks so that when a company really needs me, I am full of energy. If you like this kind of video, please subscribe. And by the way, one of my goals for 2026 is to get to 100 subscribers. We are at 88 right now, and so just 12 more. So if you like this kind of video, please do me a favor and subscribe. That will help me or motivate me to continue to make these videos, which is telling about the startup world through examples. The second lesson I learned in 2025 is I was waiting for a break that never came. I was waiting for this breakthrough of a hockey stick growth. And I felt like if I have to ask myself in 2025, January, whether the break will come, I will say it will be a 20% chance that it will come. And it did not come. We still did pretty well in 2025, but it wasn't a hockey stick growth. It was still a grind. Now in 2026, if you ask me in the beginning of the year, what's the probability of a hockey stick growth this year? I will say it's a 40% probability. And the next year is probably a 60% probability that a breakthrough will come. So the breakthrough never came. It's disappointing, but it also tests my patience. I guess, at this point, year 4, most companies will have done many, many millions of ARR in the, tens of millions of ARR if they're fast growing enough, but we're definitely not that. So the question is, in the absence of a breakthrough, what makes the startup worth it for me and for the employees? And the answer is, I could not imagine myself doing anything else. Like, I would rather work on this startup and make it profitable because I enjoy the work so much more than working as an engineering manager in a tech company. Because I have full agency, because I can change the course, and because there is still the chance of a breakthrough, even though it started at 20% and it will get to 40%, it will get to 60%, 80%. It does feel like the things we're working on have multiple shots at a breakthrough. A startup is won not by throwing silver bullets, but throwing a bunch of lead bullets at it. And eventually something is going to be cracked open. The third observation I learned is I got really into cosmology and Chinese metaphysics, known as Bazi, B-A-Z-I. You can imagine it, taking your birth chart and then measuring whether you're going to have a great life, a good life, a mediocre life, an average life, and a sad life. And this is in the midst of us going through a low growth period. So I was confused, like it's been 4 years. Why is it that I'm not hitting a brick? So I went to multiple Chinese metaphysics teachers, and their conclusion is that you, Perry, have an amazing metaphysics chart. Like, you supposed to have an amazing life. Furthermore, the good luck will come later in your life, and so it will only get better. I don't believe them. I took it to other teachers. They say the same thing. And some even claim that my chart is like 1 out of tens of thousands, like very, very, very good. I also don't believe it. So I start studying it. And after I study it to some degree, after 6 months to 9 months, now I can honestly say, if I look at my chart, that is the correct explanation based on the chart. It's not like they are looking at me and looking at my history to determine what they will say. They don't do that. They don't read your expression or anything. There are some principles on looking the cosmology and your metaphysics chart to have some kind of explanation. Now, to me, you can call it superstition, but I like to call it finding some kind of a validation, some kind of hope. I'm finding excuses to be hopeful about the future. It is very fascinating, though, that if you have to look at every 10 years of my life, and based on the chart or the 10-year pillar of the Chinese metaphysics, it mapped to my life extremely, extremely well. It reminds me of this guy called Naval Ravikant, the founder of AngelList, where he developed this very Zen, stoic mind, start meditating, that kind of stuff. There usually comes a point in entrepreneurs' life that they became almost obsessed with these out of the norm, not trendy kind of topics. The fourth lesson that I learned is about the importance of market. I know this sounds super trite, but market matters more than anything else in determining the success of your startup. And the example I gave is in 2025, I took a personal vacation to countries like Singapore and Thailand and Hong Kong. And while I was in Thailand, I was stuck in a Grab ride in downtown Bangkok. Because of traffic, I had the time of looking out my window and I saw multiple signs of Grab posters, which is the ride sharing and the Uber Eats equivalent of Thailand. I also learned about two companies called Monee and Shopee. Shopee is the equivalent of Amazon in Southeast Asia. And I learned about the life of Forrest Li, who is a Singaporean billionaire that created Shopee. Before he created Shopee, he had this gaming startup that was basically going nowhere. It was profitable, but it was not like a unicorn by any stretch. Then they stumbled upon this e-commerce website, and then within 2 or 3 years, that Shopee app went on a hockey stick growth, and that's how they became super big. Grab also is, in my opinion, I used to work at a ride-sharing company, is basically translating the American invention, in my opinion, to Southeast Asia. And same thing with these like food delivery and ride-sharing apps in China and so on. And so it was a very visceral feeling that made me feel that while America is really good at coming up with the idea, Asia is amazing at adopting it. And as long as something is a true human need, it will flourish if you have great execution. But be very careful about the market you choose. If you choose too small of a market, even if you are brilliant, you cannot make it succeed. Market is more important than execution. Awareness is probably more important than market. So I had this other theory, just to go on a tangent, of hard work is important, but choice is more important than hard work. And wisdom is more important than choice. You can work your ass off, but what you actually choose is the first order impact. And be aware of that this is not within your control, and you need to respect the cards you're dealt. It's more important the choices you make. Anyway, that was a lot of things all in one lesson, which is when I look at Grab, like the reason that Grab is on every poster of Bangkok is that food delivery, convenience of food coming to your house is a fundamental human need. Shopping is a fundamental human need. Money, which is the equivalent of Zelle and PayPal, is a fundamental human need. I learned that in Bangkok, nobody really uses a real estate app. All the payments and the rent are paid through the bank. Because these are the kind of questions I asked on my vacation, apparently, that I talked to the Grab user and the Grab driver. I say, hey, how do you pay rent? And apparently, they don't pay rent through some website. They pay through their bank. And that gave me the idea that, hey, we need to come back and create a fintech product. And then I mentioned about choice is more important than hard work. So I realized the most important thing I could be doing is not work harder, but to pick the right lane and the right product. 2024 was like thinking, how can we find the water out of the desert? Because I don't think I can make a civilization flourish on the desert, in which is our initial product. But that is the wedge for us to find the water, which then we can build a civilization on. 2025 is like, aha, I think I know where to go. That's the choice. And the awareness is, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I think this is the right choice. And that made me respect about this cosmos, things that are outside of my control. Add to the fact that multiple metaphysics teachers said that I will have a great life and that my luck should continue to improve, gives me solace and confidence that, okay, maybe it is within my destiny to do something great. So that is the middle of 2025. Number 5 is I really pay attention to my fitness. Here is a chart of my sleep consistency when I went to bed and when I wake up in a certain month. And as you can see, I was very disciplined on going to bed and waking up at the same time, because I read in multiple podcasts that sleep consistency is the most important part of your life. And so I start sleeping and waking up at the same time. And yes, I can certify that that has made all the difference. So now if people ask me, how can I improve my health? How can I improve anything? I will say, just go to bed and wake up at the same time. That literally should be the first thing you are doing. If you cannot do that, it's like, oh, I'm exercising, I don't feel good. I'm like, I go to the gym and I'm like, you cannot outwork a bad sleep schedule. You cannot out diet a bad sleep schedule. It all goes back to sleep. So fitness becomes a huge part in 2025. I think I end up losing like 20 pounds or so on, and I felt a lot more confident and a lot happier and just a lot fulfilled that like, okay, if I just work out it day after day, body will change. If I work out it day after day, startup will eventually pick up the steam. And then the last lesson is, it's been 4 years. Year 4, right? 2025. In fact, if you include the -1 and the 0 year, it's like 6 years at this point. Startup is by no means going on a hockey stick. I'm sure that investors have write-offs this investment of this becoming a unicorn. And the moment that all investors, like, they don't give up because the company is not there and then we're still growing. But like, I'm pretty sure that nobody thinks this is a unicorn company. And what I learned is when nobody believes this is unicorn, that's when I believe this will be a unicorn. When nobody believes that this will go to the moon, this is when I have the strongest conviction that it will work. But even with that, I have the humility to say, I'm not going to say that it will work. I'm not going to say that this will be, tens of billions. But in my heart of hearts, I think we are onto something special, and that there is this very deep-rooted, beautiful vision that I have for commercial real estate that I believe should happen in this world. And that vision, I became more convicted than ever before in 2025. So after all 4 years, I believe I developed both the patience that this is gonna take forever, and I'm very happy that it will take forever. Because it will take forever, a lot of people will have given up throughout that journey. And that's the only way I can win. I remember in the previous episode, I said in college, the good grades I get are always the result of just grinding at it. they don't come effortlessly. And I believe for the startup, the success also will not come effortlessly. And I have this pretty good mindset of really thinking long term and not giving up until multiple people have left the arena. And then the second, the humility that even if I work for 10 years and it still will not work, and the breakthrough may never come after 20 years, will I still be happy? And the answer is, I will still be very happy after 10, 20 years, because even the very base case is better than working in my tech job. And you might say, this is totally not worth it for the amount of work that you put in compared to the rewards. And I said, even if I get the same financial rewards as if I work at a tech company, I will be okay. If it's 2x more, I will be already pretty happy because I enjoy the work and enjoy the type of people I come in contact with. And so I end 2025 with this kind of feeling that like, okay, I have found my destiny and let's go. So that concludes 2025. I don't think I'll do one in 2026 because it has just started. But 2025 has some ups and downs, but it ended with a strong conviction and hopefulness for the future. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel, please subscribe and you will hear more lessons from me as a solo founder talking about a humbly growing startup that is not going to the moon anytime soon, but there's still a lot of joy and a lot of lessons to be learned from a PE track startup. Thank you so much again and have a great day. Bye bye.